Hello students, welcome to IAS by Heart. Welcome to the Prelims High series. This is the current affairs class and this is the fourth class. If you haven't checked out our first 3 class videos, kindly check the link in the description box below. Without further delay, let's get into today's class. The first question is from Polity. Consider the following statements regarding section 144 of CRPC. We have been seeing this section in the newspapers amid COVID pandemic. Let's look at the statements. It gives power to the district magistrate on behalf of the state government to issue an order to individual or to the general public in particular place or area to abstain from a certain act. This certain act includes a variety of things, even gathering or even holding arms, having rallies, etc. All this will contain under certain act. Second statement, mere apprehension of danger is sufficient to curb citizens' right by invoking section 144. What they are saying is, if there is just a perception or any news that there is a danger to the society, can section 144 be invoked? That is what the statement 2 is asking. Moving on to statement 3, section 144 also empowers the authority to block the internet access. If you have read the newspaper, by implementing section 144 in Jammu Kashmir, their internet access was blocked. So apparently third statement becomes correct one. So looking at the answer is second statement is not correct. 1 and 3 is correct because mere apprehension of danger is not sufficient to curb citizens' rights, because this violates fundamental rights. Let's get into the explanation part. What is section 144, which is mentioned in the CRPC? This gives power to district magistrate, a subdivisional magistrate or any other executive magistrate on behalf of the state government. It can be issued against an individual or the general public in a place or an area to abstain from certain act or to take certain order with respect to certain property also. And the main aim is to prevent and address urgent cases of apprehended danger or nuisance. This is the main aim of section 144 implication, and the orders may be directed against one individual or a group of persons residing in a particular place or area or to the general public. Next one, recently Supreme Court said that mere apprehension of danger, that is just a notion or just by understanding that there is going to be some danger, that is not sufficient ground to curb citizens' rights. Moving on. So what are the implications? That is, if section 144 is implemented, what will happen? It restricts carrying of any sort of weapon in that area. And people can be detained for violating it. That is, nobody should carry any dangerous weapons, and the maximum punishment is up to 3 years. And the second implication is there shall be no movement of public and all educational institutions shall remain closed. If you could relate this with the current situation in which 144 has been implemented, you will know all these are true. And there will be a complete bar on holding any kind of public meetings or rallies, etc. Meaning this almost curbs most of the freedoms which we have studied in Article 19, and this section 144 also empowers the authority to block the internet access. Moving on. So how long can section 144 be implemented? It can be implemented not for more than 2 months, but the state government can extend the validity of 2 months to 6 months. So the maximum validity for section 144 is 6 months, not more than that. And it can be withdrawn at any point of time if situation becomes normal. That's all about section 144. Since in many states and in cities this has been implemented, this becomes an important question. Now moving on to the next subject, which is economy. Consider the following statement about hybrid annuity model. This is a new form of build, operate, transfer annuity model. There are 2 models in which is build, operate, transfer and build, operate, transfer annuity model. We'll study about that later. The government will contribute 60% of the project cost in the first 5 years through annual payments. Okay, the next statement says there is no right to collect toll for the developer, meaning the private entity who is helping in the project, he has no right to collect toll for the developer. That's what statement 3 says. Let's look at the correct answer. The correct answer is 3 only. Is this a new form of BOT annuity model? No, there are many changes regarding this model. Let's look at the explanation. So as we have seen this, hybrid annuity model is a mix of BOT annuity and EPC models. To understand this, let's understand the various PPP models in India. The first one is build, operate, transfer, toll model. In this model, the project cost is borne by the private player and the risks are also covered by the private player, and the maintenance of the toll is also borne by the private player. As you can see, this is really unfair to the private player and it's really discouraging. Hence, this model was replaced by a better version which is called as BOT annuity model. Now, in this model, this is same as the BOT toll model, except that the maintenance, here the maintenance is also by the private player. Here the maintenance of the toll is borne by the government and fixed amount is paid to the private, and this is paid annually. That is called as BOT annuity model. Now the next one is this engineering, procurement and construction EPC model. In this model, the project cost is fully borne by the government and the majority of the risks is also borne by the government. What is the role of the private? Only design and sharing of engineering knowledge is done by the private. As you can see, this is a great financial burden to the exchequer because the government has to share the cost, the major risks has to be borne by the government, and even maintenance is also done by the government. So as you can see, these are the various major models, and the latest model is this hybrid annuity model. I'll explain this in a shorter version. Here the project cost is shared between the government and the private in 60:40 ratio, and the majority risks are borne by the government. The private will pay a sum annually for fixed term, and the maintenance is the responsibility of the private player till say 25 years or some other say 25 years or other fixed term. For a fixed term, the private players has to maintain. After that, it is transferred to the government. As of now, this is the best model which is right now in use. Let's look even more detailed statements about this. As I said, the government will contribute 40% to the project cost for the first 5 years through annual payments. That's why it is called as annuity model. The remaining payment, that is 60% of the payment, is made on the basis of the assets created and the performance of the developer. Because as you know, any engineering project, the initial estimation of the project will not be equal to the final construction cost. Therefore, 60% of the project cost will be paid after the assets are created and after assessing the value of the assets. That's what is said here. The first 40% payment is made in the fixed amount in 5 equal installments, whereas 60% is paid variable annuity after the completion of the project, depending upon the value of the assets created. Now moving on. Here, as the government pays only 40% during the construction stage, the developer should find money for the remaining amount. This is one of the very small disadvantage in this model. Here he has to raise the remaining 60% in the form of equity or loans, etc. One thing to remember is there is no toll right for the developer. Under HAM, revenue collection would be responsibility of National Highways Authority of India. This is done so that the private players should not place a cap on the toll which is very high for the public to use. Therefore, this is transferred to National Highways Authority of India. I hope now you are clear about what are the different PPP models. To recall, the BOT model, BOT toll model. Here the role of the private player is very high, and the next one, BOT annuity model, had a balance between the government and the private player. And then the EPC model, here the burden was high on the government now is HAM model, which is the hybrid variety of the bought annuity model and the EPC model. Now let's move on to the next question. This question is from International Relations. Consider the following statements regarding European Green Deal. This was in the newspaper for quite some time. This is a comprehensive strategy document which puts the EU on a trajectory towards no net emission of greenhouse gases in 2050. Okay, EU with 28 member countries are together the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. If you have been reading the newspaper, you know that the largest emitter of greenhouse gases is US and not EU. At least you can use common sense and know that China will be surely more than EU. So you can very well eliminate this statement. Next one, EU is the first major emitter to agree to the 2050 climate neutrality target. After eliminating second statement, we have only 1 and 3. Let's look at the correct answer. Both the statements of 1 and 3 is correct. Now let's get into the explanation. European Commission published the European Green Deal last year. This deal aims to be a comprehensive strategy document which puts EU on a trajectory towards no net emission of greenhouse gases in 2050. This is the target, and here the economic growth is decoupled from resource use. Moving on, what is climate neutrality? EU has promised to bring a law binding on all the member countries, that is 28 member countries, to ensure it becomes climate neutral, meaning the greenhouse gas should not affect the climate. Climate neutrality is expressed as the state of net zero emissions, when a country's emissions are balanced by absorption, meaning the emission should be equal to the absorption. That's when we call it as climate neutral. And the removal of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Absorption can be increased by creating more carbon sinks like forests, making the oceans even more better carbon sinks, while removal technologies like carbon capture, storage, etc. EU with the 28 member countries are the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases. I'm sorry, after Brexit this is 27. Sorry. EU now has 27 member countries and this is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases after China and US. So the number one greenhouse gas emitter is China. The second one is US. Third one is EU. Unfortunately, the fourth place is held by India. As you can see in this graph, the major chunk of the greenhouse gases emitted by China. Next place by US. Third is EU with 27 countries. Next one is India. Fifth place is Russia, Japan, Brazil, and it goes on. It also says what are the major sectors responsible for this greenhouse gas emission in respective countries. In China, it is the energy, industry and agriculture sector. Whereas in US, energy sector contributes the most and a little and agriculture also. In EU, the energy sector. In India, agriculture and the energy sector contributes to the major emissions. Now, EU is now the first major emitter to agree to the 2050 climate neutrality target. None of the other major emitters have agreed to this. One more tip, Bhutan and Suriname, which is in South America, are the only carbon neutral countries. What is meant by carbon neutrality? As we have seen, the number of the carbon emitted and the carbon absorbed should be balanced. That is called as carbon neutral. These are the only two countries in the world which has achieved this. Now moving on, the next question is from internal security. Recently, Indian Air Force AN-32 aircraft uses a 10% blend of Indian biojet fuel. Consider the following statements regarding biojet fuel. This biojet fuel is prepared from non-edible tree-borne oil and it is procured from various tribal areas of India. Second statement says this fuel is made of Jatropha oil. Both the statements are correct. Let's know more about this biojet fuel. In Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat radio address, he mentioned and he hailed the use of biofuel in Indian Air Force transportation aircraft. This AN-32 aircraft used 10% blend of Indian biojet fuel and it took off from Leh. This is just additional information, and this is the first time that this mix was used in both the engines of the aircraft. This indigenous biojet fuel was actually prepared in 2013 itself by Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Indian Institute of Petroleum. This lab is in Dehradun. Remember this? But due to lack of testing facilities in the civil aviation sector, which was 7 years before, this could not be tested for commercial use. This biojet fuel is from non-edible tree bone oil and it is procured from various tribal areas. Moving on, this fuel is made from Jatropha oil. Have a look at this. This is the Jatropha seeds, and from this seed, this oil is taken. This is predominantly found in Chhattisgarh. And this oil was sourced from Chhattisgarh Biodiesel Development Authority and it was then processed at CSRIIP in Dehradun. The recent certification is a huge step in promoting Make in India, because this biofuel would be procured from tree bone oils, right? And this will be beneficial to all the tribal area farmers, because this will improve their income substantially. Therefore, this is a major boost in the Make in India project. Let's move on. The next question is from Environment. Consider the following statements regarding India's State of Forest Report, which was published in 2019. India is among the few countries in the world where forest cover is consistently increasing, and the total forest and tree cover in the country is 24.56% of the geographical area. The top state with increase in forest cover is Kerala, which is followed by Karnataka. Area wise, Madhya Pradesh has the largest forest cover in the country, followed by Arunachal Pradesh. This is a very factual question. Unless until you have read this report or at least know the excerpts from this report, you cannot answer this. Let's look at the answer. The correct answer is 1 and 3 only, because the top state with increased forest cover is not Kerala and it is Karnataka only. Let's move on to the explanation. Since this is an important part, let's look at the explanation even more deeper. Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change released the biennial, meaning this report is produced once in 2 years. And this report is published by the Forest Survey of India. This is released by Environment Ministry, published by Forest Survey of India. This is mandated to assess the forest and tree resources of the country, including wall-to-wall forest cover, mapping a biennial cycle. This is the 16th report, and the first report was published in 1987. What are the important points in this report? As compared to 2017, there is an increase of 5,000 square kilometer in the total forest and tree cover. The range increase in forest cover is observed in open forest category. There are 3 major classifications: very dense forests, moderately dense forests and open forests. This report says that the forest cover increase is found in open forests category, as you can see, and then the dense forest category, and then moderately dense forest category. Now moving on, what are the top 5 states to show increase in forest cover? The first one is Karnataka, second Andhra, Kerala, Jammu Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. These states have shown increase in forest cover, meaning compared to 2017, 2019 there has been increase in the forest cover. Forest cover area wise, if you see, Madhya Pradesh has the highest forest cover, followed by Arunachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Maharashtra. This is forest cover percentage, meaning how much percentage of the state is covered by forests. Mizoram has almost 85% covered by forests, Arunachal Pradesh 79, Meghalaya 76. As you can see, the states covered in forest cover increase in percentages dominated by the northeastern states. Now, there has been decrease of forest cover in the northeastern region. Except Assam and Tripura, all the states in the region show decrease in forest cover because of the increased industrial activity, etc. Except, remember, these 2 states, Assam and Tripura, majority of the northeastern states are showing decreasing forest cover. Among the states, Gujarat has the largest area of wetlands, which is followed by West Bengal. We normally will not guess Gujarat to have largest area in wetlands, but this is truth. And then it is followed by West Bengal. Moving on, the dependence of fuel wood on forest is the highest in the state of Maharashtra. Meaning people still procure a fuel wood, therefore it will lead to more deforestation. Therefore this point becomes important. The dependence of fuel wood is highest in the state of Maharashtra, whereas for fodder, small timber and bamboo, the dependence is highest in Madhya Pradesh. Here 21% of the forest cover in India is highly prone to fires. Remember this, only 21%. This is a decent number. Only 21% of the Indian forests are prone to forest fires. Going on to the mangrove cover, this has been separately reported in this report, and mangrove cover has increased as compared to the previous assessment. The top 3 states showing mangrove cover increase is Gujarat, followed by Maharashtra and Odisha. This is the states which have showed increase. But as you can see, the states with highest mangrove cover, first is West Bengal. This has the highest mangrove cover. And then it is followed by Gujarat. And then Andaman Nicobar. Whereas the state showing increase in mangrove cover is Gujarat, Maharashtra and Odisha. Moving on. The extent of bamboo bearing area has been estimated in 16 million, and here also there is an increase of 0.32 million hectare in bamboo areas. Here are the 10 states in terms of dependence of forest bamboo. The first one goes to Madhya Pradesh, which is followed by Chhattisgarh and then Gujarat. These are the top 3 states which have high dependence on forest bamboo. Now moving on, 36th question, which is from Science and Technology. Consider the following statements regarding Punch mission. European Space Agency's Punch mission will image regions beyond the sun's outer corona. This mission will track the solar wind and also the coronal mass ejections, which are a huge mass of plasma that get thrown out of the sun's atmosphere. India has planned a satellite Aditya L1. This will also study sun's corona. Let's see which of the following statements are correct. Statement 2 and 3 are correct because this is not done by European Space Agency. Let's look at the explanation. This Punch mission belongs to NASA, and the aim of this is to image the sun. This is a landmark mission that will image region beyond the sun's outer corona. What is sun's corona? This is the outermost region of sun's atmosphere. As you can see here, this is the outermost layer of the sun, corona. When we look at the anatomy of the sun, the innermost layer is called the core and the outermost layer is corona. The next layer out to corona is chromosphere, which is followed by photosphere. So the first layer is corona, the second layer is chromosphere, the third layer is photosphere. That is clearly mentioned in this diagram. Corona, chromosphere and photosphere. As you can see, actually chromosphere, this is more cooler than corona and also photosphere. The layer which is in the middle of corona and photosphere, this is cooler than the other 2 layers. Look at the temperature mentioned here. This is an important fact. Now moving on, what is Punch mission? This is polarimeter to unify the corona and heliosphere. What is heliosphere? Let's look at this diagram. This is the place of sun, and up to here it is called as heliosphere. Up to here it is called as heliosphere. Helio means sun. So this amounts to the space where till the domination of the sun is seen. After this, there is a small layer which is called as heliopause, and then comes the outer galaxy. Now this mission, this is focused on understanding the transition of particles from sun's outer corona to the solar wind. This will consist of constellation of 4 microsatellites. This Punch mission will have 4 microsatellites. that through continuous 3D deep field imaging will observe the corona and heliosphere. The important thing is it will observe this both corona and heliosphere as a single connected system. This Punch mission is expected to be launched in the year 2022. And additional information is India is also planning to set up its own satellite, Aditya L1. The aim of this is also to study the sun's outer layer, which is called as corona. Now moving on, the next question is from social issues. Consider the following statement regarding infant mortality rate or IMR. First statement says IMR is the number of deaths of children under 5 years per 1000 live births. If you know the definition of IMR, you can say that this statement is correct or not. The next statement says IMR in the country currently stands at 33 per 1000 live births. The next statement, between 2014 and 17, IMR in the country has declined by more than 10%. All these statements are factual. Let's look at the answer. The correct answer is D, 2 and 3 only. Let's look at the explanation. India has reduced its IMR by 42% in the course of 11 years. Because it was 57 in 2006 and now it is only 33 as per the latest government data. Now this has declined by 15%, more than 10% decrease. The reduction of child mortality is now a target in SDG 3. SDG 3 deals with ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all the ages. If there is a question in mains about the IMR, you can quote this. SDG 3 deals with other mortality rates. Let's look at this. In various states all over India, there has been decrease of 15%. In Mizoram, there has been a big decrease, 53% decrease in 3 years. And in Delhi, we have seen a 20% decline. In Rajasthan, 17% decline. Bihar, 16% decline, and so on. Have a look at this table. Now, what is IMR? It is death per 1000 live births. Let's look about this more. What is infant mortality? It is death of young children under the age of 1. This death toll is measured by IMR, which is the number of deaths of children under 1 year, that is children aged less than 1 year deaths per 1000 live births. That is what is IMR. Under 5 mortality rate, this is also an important one. This refers to the child mortality rate under the age of 5. This is also important statistics because IMR focus only on the death of children under the age of 1. Child mortality is the death of child before the child's 5th birthday, that is 5 years. Now moving on, every day India witness an estimated death of 2,350 babies aged less than 1 year. That is IMR per day is 2350. Among them 172, that is majority of them are from Rajasthan and Gujarat. This IMR in the country currently stands at 33 per 1000 live births. This is just the average figure. And India's IMR is worse than that of Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka and China. So this is a very important thing and we have to take ample measures to rectify this. The problem remains severe in North Indian states of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, Assam and UP. These are the states in which IMR is high. India's IMR, remember this figure, it is 33 per 1000 live births. Now moving on, what are the forms of infant mortality? The first one is perinatal mortality. If the fetus dies within 22 weeks of gestation or death of a newborn up to 1 week after delivery. That is, if a baby dies within 22 weeks of conception or it dies within 1 week after being born, it is called as perinatal mortality. The next one is neonatal mortality. This is death occurring within 28 days after being born. This is often attributed to inadequate access to basic medical care during pregnancy and after delivery. This is the major chunk because this accounts for 40 to 60% of infant mortality. What is post-neonatal mortality? This means after 29 days to 1 year. If the baby dies after 29 days to 1 year, this is called as post-neonatal mortality. The major contributors are malnutrition, diseases, troubled pregnancy, sudden infant death syndrome, etc. So as you can see, IMR, there are three major forms. Perinatal, if the baby dies within 1 week of delivery, and neonatal mortality if it dies within 28 days of delivery, and post-neonatal mortality if it dies from 29 days to 1 year. Remember all this. Now moving on, why is this so high in India? Because the major contributor is premature birth. This is the major reason for IMR in India, and other complications like asphyxia, which is majorly due to deprivation of oxygen during delivery, and then female literacy rate. This is also a major contributing factor to IMR, and child marriages, unplanned pregnancies, this will also contribute to IMR. Next one is shortage of properly trained health workers and midwives. Poverty is a major reason for all the problems in India, and the absence of steps to propagate basic health practices relating to breastfeeding, immunization. That's why government has launched various awareness campaigns in this area. The next major thing is India's per capita spending on health. It is very low when compared to the developed economies like US, etc., which shares 18% of its GDP to health. India is still under 1.2%. This is the major contributor of increased IMR or maternal mortality rate or any other mortality rates. Now the next question, this is from Art and Culture. Consider the following statement regarding Tanaji Malusure. He is known for his role in the Battle of Singad, which was fought under the Maratha flag against the Mughals. That is Marathas versus Mughals. Treaty of Purandar was signed between the Rajput ruler Jai Singh I and Chhatrapati Shivaji. According to Treaty of Purandar, Shivaji had to hand over important forts including Purandar and Singad to the Mughals. Which of the following statements are correct? All the statements are correct. Let's know more about him. Why is this in news? Because recently Ajay Devgan, Kajol and Saif Ali Khan movie Tanhaji, he was the unsung warrior. This was released, and this is about Tanaji Malusure. He was the 17th century Maratha warrior and general. He worked under Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. He is known for his role in the Battle of Singad, which was fought in 1670. Unfortunately, he lost his life in this battle. Who was he? He was the Maratha military leader and close aide of Chhatrapati Shivaji. He hailed from the Malusure clan. He is popularly remembered for his battle of Singad. In this battle, Tanaji fought against Udayaban Rathore. He is a Rajput warrior who put in charge of Fort Kandana by Jai Singh. What is this Battle of Singad that was fought in 1670? In 1665, the Treaty of Purandar was signed between Jai Singh and Shivaji. Among several demands in this treaty, it required the Maratha ruler to give up Fort Kandana to the Mughals. After the Mughal took over, this fort was guarded by Rajputs, Pathans and Arab troop guards, and it was said to be impenetrable. Nobody can get in or get out. This deeply disturbed and enraged Shivaji's mother, Rajmata Jijabai. Therefore, knowing this, Shivaji entrusted Tanaji, the only man he could think of capable of reconquering the fort of Kandana. What were the outcomes of this battle? Even though the attack by Tanaji took the Mughals by surprise, the Mughals outnumbered the Marathas. This is the major problem. And the two clashed for a very long time, and Malusure, he was greatly wounded, therefore he lost his life in the battle. Enraged by the death of their general, Marathas fought under the leadership of his brother Suryaji and eventually vanquished the enemy. The fort was renamed as Singhabad by Shivaji to honor Tanaji. Due to the release of this movie, this historical piece becomes important. Now, let's move on to the next question, which is from various important government schemes. Consider the following statement regarding trachea. Recently seen in news. It is a unique barcoding software to ensure that forensic reports are not tampered. Karnataka police is the first to introduce this in the country. Which of the following statements are correct? Let's look at the answer. The answer is 2 only. Moving on to the explanation part. This was adopted by Haryana police and not Karnataka. This is a unique barcoding software known as trachea. This aims to ensure that the forensic reports are not tampered because forensic reports form the backbone of the criminal investigation. This trachea is aimed at ensuring security and tamper-proof tracking system for forensic reports. This streamlines the functioning of forensic science laboratories. Haryana police claims that this is the country's first police force to have introduced this unique barcoding forensic reports. Moving on. This is a forensic evidence management system and this helps in the automation of the entire procedure. If you see, forensics starts from collection of vital samples from the crime scene, conducting analysis, tracking case-wise forensic reports, etc. So this aims to automate the entire procedure. In this software, the selection of forensic teams is also done in a random manner. Due to the unique barcoding, only authorized investigating officers and forensic science experts shall be able to track the crime exhibits. Therefore, the chances of tampering or leakage of the report is reduced. Now moving on, the last question for this session. The term flexitarian, this is often seen in news. This is related to what? Providing protein-rich food to the children and adolescents, moving flexible interest rate for loans, reducing the animal-based food and increasing the plant-based food, or none of the above. Let's see, the answer is flexitarian, meaning it is a flexible vegetarian. Let's look at the explanation. As I said before, flexitarian is a flexible vegetarian. One who is a flexible vegetarian is called as flexitarian. A flexitarian diet is a style of eating that encourages mostly plant-based foods, allowing meat and other animal products in moderation. Flexitarianism is also called as casual vegetarianism. This is increasingly popular and it is a plant-based diet that claims to reduce your carbon footprint. And it tries to improve your health with an eating regime that is mostly vegetarian and still allows for the occasional meat dish. This is called as flexitarian because this is more flexible than the full vegetarian or vegan diets. That's all for today's class, students. I hope this class was useful and informative. Kindly follow us for more prelims questions. Thank you.